All right, so Phil, let's get down to brass tacks. This is a 49ers team that's lost its last 2 games. It's a 49ers team with some injuries at key positions. First of all, let me ask you this. We just talked to Dave Richard, and he said he seemed to think George Kittle was coming back. I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
It sounds like he's still limited in practice, but they certainly haven't ruled him out at this point, so I could see him playing. Sure.
Okay, and but with the injuries and everything that's going on, do you think that the Patriots, there's a way that the Patriots can game plan to perhaps steal one on the road?
Perhaps. I put it at very small odds. I do think they could keep it close, and I know I was here last week with you guys, and the Jets at the time were 6.5-point favorites, I think, and I said that's too many points. Couldn't have been more wrong. So I still feel like there's a path to the Patriots keeping it close based on a lot of the injuries that San Francisco is dealing with, just based on the fact that I think the Patriots are going to emotionally show something more than they showed a week ago. I think this is a huge week for Jerod Mayo, just to get the team to respond. They didn't show up on Thursday night. And you could say it's Thursday night, it's short week, you're on the road, a lot of circumstances sort of working against you there. They laid an egg. We've seen it happen before. That can't happen again. This is a critical juncture, I would say, for him and his culture. What have you established from the time you took the job to now? What have you established with your players, with that locker room, in order to generate some kind of effort, energy, emotion that we didn't see a week ago? If we don't see it again, that to me is a real problem. I'm assuming they'll bring something more, which will lead to a closer game.
But at the same time, there's that talent gap between the Patriots and San Francisco. For example, Nick Bosa is an all-world defensive end. Yeah, I believe he was the defensive player of the year in the league a couple of years ago. He spends most of his time lined up opposite the left tackle. Caden Wallace couldn't block anybody in his first ever start at left tackle last week. And it looks like, at the moment, he's going to be back out there again on Sunday.
The Jets were blitzing a lot, though. Is there a way the Patriots? I mean, they couldn't figure anything out.
How do you block when you couldn't block before?
How do you block?
Like, do you think that there's a way that the Patriots can figure out? Oh, that's how you obviously played the game. Is
that's good.
If you don't know,
arms in.
Tune into YouTube
handsy.
right now. You're getting a tutorial.
A lot of hands to the face there.
Yes.
I'm throwing flags on half those. But. The Jets just exposed them, and I understand how they did it. Traditionally, that Jets defense doesn't blitz. They took advantage of that inexperienced offensive line. The Patriots, do you think the 49ers will try the same thing, or do you think they'll have success just rushing 4?
They'll try the same thing, is my guess.
Yeah.
Just to see if the Patriots have it figured out. Mm-hmm. The one way the Patriots can try to avoid those situations is by, and it's very basic, it's football 101, but it's what they have to do. It's how they have to play in order to be successful. It's stay ahead of the sticks, meaning don't be in 2nd and 10, 2nd and 9, be in 2nd and 5, be in 3rd and 2. Maybe even skip 3rd down. Mind blown. Try to figure that out.
Too much.
Where you could skip 3rd down, so you're not in these obvious passing situations that the Jets were constantly in against the Patriots, and then you're able to send those blitzes that the Patriots aren't going to be able to figure out. To your point about Caden Wallace, I'm not sure he's going to be the starting left tackle.
Well, Lowe isn't practicing, so who is it?
Well, Caden Wallace is looking very limited to me, and the guy who was out there first, I thought yesterday at practice, was DeMontre Jacobs, who was the guy who finished the game the other day.
Who's he?
Who was their
He's
fourth
their
left tackle. He was a waiver claim pickup early in the season. He's not an NFL starting caliber offensive lineman.
I feel much better now.
So it might be worse than Caden Wallace, ostensibly.
So
it's a bad situation.
You talk about the talent disparity. You talk about the problems with Nick Bosa and all this stuff. To me, it comes back to what you said at the very beginning, Phil, not showing up, especially defensively. And I know the defense is going to be they're going to be on the short end of the stick on a short week like that. But they've had some extra time to get ready for it. And you're going to be playing not just a team with a passing game. You're just playing a team. Most teams in the league have a passing game. So you're going to have to you're going to have to show up defensively and just do fundamental things in order to stay in this game. You're going to have to tackle, and you're going to have to figure out some kind of an answer for a team that can pass the ball, because you cannot.
Yeah. I think they've really tried to this week, players, have talked about it openly. Andrews has talked about it. I've talked about it individually with guys. They really feel like they need to get back to what they call their non-negotiables, right? So it is a non-negotiable for them to be a significantly better tackling team than they were a couple of weeks ago. It's non-negotiable for them offensively. They have to be able to run the football and run it effectively. They have to be a more physical.
Because you have to do.
These are the pillars
one
of
thing offensively, either run or pass.
The simplest things in football, the most basic football foundational principles that I would teach my 7-year-old team, or that any of us could talk to a high school football team and they would say, what are the 3 most important things for us to do? It would be all the same stuff. That's the sort of stuff they need to be able to do. I think what benefits them, number one, when you're talking about the Niners defense, as good as Nick Bosa is, I think the Jets are better right now, just across the board.
Okay.
The Niners defense has been a little bit shoddy this year relative to expectations. And then offensively, they are without some really key guys. And Brock Purdy has played well enough this year, and some of his numbers are actually really good. He's like top 5 of the league in some of these things. He's banged up. He's also been playing this really like frenetic style that I think could lead to a game-changing type of mistake. I don't know if you want to depend on that, because for the most part, he does a pretty good job of taking care of the football. There's been a lot of scrambling around behind the line of scrimmage, extending plays, trying to see. It's the opposite of what we saw last week from Aaron Rodgers, who had the ball out of his hands in about a second and a half, it felt like, on 80% of his throws. So if you can get him to do something screwy behind the line, and that might be related to the injuries that they're dealing with. He's not seeing the picture the way he's used to. Christian McCaffrey's not there to be his outlet whenever he feels like he should be there, the way he's used to. If you can get a mistake out of Brock Purdy, I do think you can keep this game close. And that, again, that might just be me working off a small sample, and we haven't seen just how bad this team is consistently enough yet for me to say they've got no shot. But I'm not going to go there yet. I think they could potentially keep it close.
Gonzalez getting a pick would be good. It'd give me 2/3 of the way to my season total on him. 1.5 interceptions.
1.5, huh?
1.5. I took the over.
That's not a high number.
Well, the theory
he's
is
too good.
Throw at him.
Shut down. Just shut down corner kid.
Yeah.
I bet hasn't been the case. I mean, they have tested.
No, they have. Yeah,
They've thrown his way.
It wasn't the
testing
best
him.
against the Jets.
I'll 2 picks.
You know how many picks Sauce Gardner's probably going to have this year?
Zero.
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 You know how many tackles he'll probably have this year?
Zero.
Less than 0.
0.
He's not a fan of tackling.
But in order to stay in the game, they have to run the football first and not try and be cute. Like
well,
they did
Van
last
Pelt
week.
admitted it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
the play action stuff right away doesn't work if you don't establish
I
the
don't
running game.
blame them for trying, because here's a team that's one-dimensional. They can only run the ball, and if you
Jets
convince
have a
yourself,
crappy run defense.
But if it doesn't work,
Fred, I get it. It all makes sense, but then you got to go the opposite. You know, if here's what the team is.
Zig when the
this is what
other
we're gonna
guys think you're going to zag.
Exactly. So we're going to go out there. You
Let's go
convince
against
yourself in
Reed
practice.
and Gardner and try to throw
and if
the
it
ball.
doesn't work, what happens?
Yeah, you convince
happens?
yourself in 1.5 practices that they had that week that you can pass the ball. That's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to jump in front and beat the Jets. Well, it didn't work, but nothing else worked. If one other thing had worked in that game, maybe you don't get embarrassed. But they got embarrassed because they.
But
as
you know
said,
what?
They didn't show up.
The Jets showed sportsmanship. They did not run up the score.
Should have been.
That was very nice.
It should have been 42-3.
24-3.
Yeah, 24-3.
Yeah.
Like when the game was over, you had to say to yourself, "Look, now they knocked the kid's helmet off in his debut." But all things told, all right. Listen, let's talk about Drake Maye because we're gonna do it every week. Let's talk about Drake Maye. We just had there was a Dave Richards, the national guy. He had an opinion on when Drake Maye, if and when he would come in. We'll talk about that. Phil Perry's here.
Stay tuned for more.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.